I'm going to bring on our first segment guests, and those are the UAW guests. So we're going to be talking to Chris Falzon, who is a rank-and-file United Auto Workers member who is on strike at Stellantis's Toledo Assembly Complex, formerly known as Chrysler.
It's nice to be here.
Thank you for coming. And that is right. That's the right name, right?
It's Stellantis.
Stellantis, but that used to be...
It used to be Chrysler. Before that, yeah, it was Fiat Chrysler. It's changed so much.
All right. So the company formerly known as Chrysler. Yes. Yeah. Okay, got it. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. And we are in solidarity with your striking. So thank you for doing that. And of course, we'll share at the end or during the stream, we're going to ask the guests about where people can donate to support that strike. Then we're also being joined by Marcelina Pedraza, a member of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers and United Auto Worker Local 551 at Ford Chicago Assembly Plant. Hi, Marcelina.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining. And Max Alvarez, a labor journalist, editor-in-chief of the Real News Network, the host of the Working People podcast, and author of The Work of Living Working People Talk About Their Lives and the Year the World Broke. Max, welcome.
Hey, Katie, thanks for having me back on. Great to see you.
Guys, I just want to start by saying congratulations on what you're doing. Thank you for what you're doing. Can you explain to people who exactly is on strike at this moment and why?
Well, currently, for Stellantis, our plant is on strike. For Ford, there's a plant in Michigan, I think it's Ford is a plant in Michigan and GM is a plant in Missouri. It's all plants that build small trucks. So the International Union is specifically targeting the same type of vehicle. We build the Jeep Gladiator, and like the GM plant builds the Canyon. So they don't want to give one company an unfair advantage against another one. So that's the key thing there. If we're going to be striking, they're striking the same type of plant across all three companies, which this is historic. We've never struck all three companies at once.
And also there was a surprise factor in it, right? Which ones were going to be struck?
Yeah, we didn't know until we got the text from the International if we were going to be going or if it was going to be Sterling Heights Assembly Plant. That's where they make the full-size trucks. So, and the company was rushing because I'm in the stock department and they were rushing to figure out where to put engines, where to put parts. And it really caught them off guard.
And can you tell us what you do, Chris, what your job consists of?
So I'm in the stock department. I am actually the cardboard recycling guy. We take all the excess cardboard, put it into a baler and bale it up and ship it out to be recycled. So that's my current job.
And how is your job affected or by this strike? What kind of demands are being made?
So there's a lot of core demands. The number one core demand for me and for a lot of people I've talked to on the picket line have been the end of tiers. I am a tier 2 employee. I don't have a pension, but I am topped out on wages. And it took me almost 11 years to hit max pay. We want to see that brought down to 90 days. We want to see it where these people come in. If they're doing the same work as me, they're on a forklift, they're on the line, they deserve the same pay.
And Marcy, what do you do and how is your job related to what you guys are demanding?
So I'm an electrician at the plant, and for trades, we basically keep the line running. You know, if there's a stop or a fault in production, the trades, usually they call the electricians first to go try to troubleshoot the problem. And, because every second they're down is lost production, it's money, lost. So, but I'm also the PM planner, the preventive maintenance planner for the paint department. I take care of the work orders for all the trades for maintenance and paint, and create work orders if, work needs to be done for electricians, pipe fitters, millwrights, tool makers, etc.
What are the demands that are being made right now? You've mentioned some of them.
Wages, because I've been saying that our wages have been stagnant, but I should really be saying that we've gone backwards. If you look at the wages 15 years ago, hell, even back in when Ford started with the $5 a day, you know, our wages with inflation have been going backwards. So, you know, we can't keep up. You know, these corporations are making billions in profit, and you know, every year it's like we're struggling more and more. Like I can't even afford, or I don't want to have to buy a new car. You know, the products we make are like the cost of a small house. You know, and for me, since I'm not trades come in all at the same pay rate. But since I'm not a legacy employee, I started in the UAW in 2013. I don't have a pension and I don't have a lifetime health care, which is something that's really important to me. But, you know, we're fighting for that across the board, for more money for the retirees. You know, we're fighting for the 32-hour work week, you know, because these jobs are backbreaking jobs. And, you know, if they want people to make quality products, you know, you should take care of the workforce.
Well, I just wanted to hop in and say, first of all, thank you so much for having us on, Katie. Thank you for having Chris and Marcy on. They rock. If folks want to hear more from Chris and Marcy, you can go check out a great interview that I did with Chris for Breaking Points right before the strike. And it ended up being, and we were talking about what was going to happen. And then Chris's plan ended up being the one of the three going on strike. But then I also got to chat with Marcy along with two other incredible UAW members for my podcast. So we get to talk more extensively about these same questions if folks want to hear more. But I also wanted to thank you. And I wanted to throw in another worker's voice here, which I think is very representative of the like what brought us to this moment and what workers like Chris and Marcy are fighting for. So this was a quote that was reported in Labor Notes. They've been doing excellent coverage of the strike. Everyone should go support them. But in a recent article, they quoted Brandon Sesniak, who's a 21-year-old plant worker at Michigan Assembly, who told Labor Notes, quote, "People are angry. It's like a revolving door. It's not a career anymore. It's a job. They want us to buy Fords, but how can we buy a Ford on this pay?" And Brandon makes $19 an hour. So there's so much contained in that, like the fact that Brandon, like Chris himself was, you know, is a lower tier worker. This has become, you know, like a scourge in the industry, just like it has in many other industries. I myself was a warehouse and factory temp 12 years ago, right? In the wake of the recession, I saw how many employers were using things like temps, or people like temps, I shouldn't say things, but using systems like temps, or creating different employment tiers where people hired after 2007 no longer get cost of living adjustments with their pay, which would have come in really handy over the past 2 years when workers across the board have been getting our asses pummeled by inflation. Workers in the auto industry also lost defined benefit pensions in the recession. And that was all to keep this industry afloat. Let's not forget where we were in 2007, 2008, 2009. This industry was about to fall into a volcano, and taxpayers bailed out two of the big three to the tune of $80 billion. At the same time, workers in the auto industry also bailed out the auto industry by opening their contracts and giving concessions like getting rid of COLA, getting rid of pensions, defined benefit pensions, creating—
And COLA, remind people what COLA is.
Cost of living adjustment, to make sure that wages keep up with inflation. And then like the explosion of temp workers and second tier workers, people who are essentially on the shop floor doing the same exact job as someone who's getting paid twice as much as them. Like, that's going to really piss you off. It pissed me and everyone in the warehouses off, because I was like, we're doing the same thing, but the guy next to me is not my enemy. It's my boss who's like created this Rube Goldberg system to exploit me. He's the problem. And so like all of this has kind of converged at the same time that, as we know, deindustrialization has meant not the decline of auto manufacturing. It has meant the offshoring of auto manufacturing to places like Mexico and beyond. It has meant that the auto workers have been able to push concessions on the UAW for decades, because they could always say, if you guys get too uppity, if you push too hard, we will make you the next Flint. We will drop an economic nuke on your town, on your community. Chris knows he just had to move from one of those plants that was just shuttered. It destroys an entire community like Lordstown, so on and so forth. At the same time that all of this crap is happening, Union density has been on the decline, yet working people have been working longer and harder, and we've been more productive. We've been generating more profits for our employers, because since 2007 2008, when workers and taxpayers bailed out these auto industries, and they promised that they would repay workers when they were back in the black, when the business was better, and then the business got better, and then Trump gave them a bunch of tax cuts, and then what did they do? They shuttered more plants, and they laid off more workers, and they gave themselves even bigger salaries and bigger shareholder buyouts, while workers like Chris and Marcy are breaking their bodies for employers who are literally trying to negotiate away their responsibility to do the bare minimum of taking care of them and other retirees who have given decades of their lives to make those record profits. That's how we fucking got here.
Yeah, and I can talk on the outsourcing, because the Belvedere plant, our Compass went down to Mexico. The Patriot, which started in our plant, got rebranded the Renegade. That went to Italy. And then they just sent the Cherokee down to Mexico. So they've literally sent all of our products overseas.
I've seen too what plant closures can do to a community. I grew up on the southeast side of Chicago in steel mill town, and my parents, my dad, my grandfather worked in the mills, and when they shut those plants down, like it totally decimated our community, and they left a toxic legacy, didn't clean up their shit. And we're still fighting, industrial zoning and environmental racism in my neighborhood. And I used to work in Belvedere as well for 3 years. And, it was a lovely small city. And the closing of that plant, hopefully it's not going to be closed, but it would be devastating to that small community.